Hello, we're here in the great company of Nicolas Bellavance-Lecompte, who's a specialist in design, curator, commissions a lot of and unearths great designers. And then we have Marianna, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce, from K Studio's architecture practice, and Mario Schwab, artistic director of Zeus+Dione. And we're here to speak about the creative awakening of Athens. Not that Athens was never a great capital city and cultural city, but there's something very special going on for the past few years, maybe even a decade, about how creative it has become. And I found this quote of the New York Times not long ago that published a long feature and showed that in just a few years, Athens has become one of Europe's most creative capitals, and most influential capitals as well, because there's kind of a free flow in creativity. So with our guests, we're going to go and deep dive into this wonderful place that Athens is, and all the creative energy that comes through it, where everything is still possible in this place. So let's start with K Studio. If you could present K Studio and what you do and how important Athens is for you.
Hello, my name is Marianna Stavridou. Great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm an architect and for some years now creative director in K Studio, which we are an architecture practice based in Greece. I grew up my whole life in Athens, studied there and joined the studio in 2015. K Studio is a design practice rooted in architecture. We have multiple projects, both in Greece and around the globe. As Greeks and Mediterraneans, we really have a contextual approach towards what we design and how we envision things. The connection between indoor and outer space, paying attention to the environment and the heritage of its place, it's something we really look up to when we're called upon to design a project.
And being in Athens is quite fabulous, no? For the inspiration, for the context, for the approach.
Yes, of course. I mean, especially when you have to do something in Athens, which is, it has such density, so much history, all these layers and strata of things that have happened from historical, archaeological, and neoclassical, modernism. I mean, it's really important to be to do something that is more about doing less rather than adding stuff.
We'll go into details of seeing different projects, but it's wonderful to see already that, you know, architecture, being an architect in Athens, means looking back and looking forward at the same time, looking at layers and paying tribute to all the historical elements.
True.
Then we're in company of Nicolas, with who you're a design curator. Something brought you to Athens a while back, from Lebanon to Athens, and there's an attraction for you about the Greek design scene, no?
Yeah, exactly. Let's say that. Well, first of all, maybe I'll do a little introduction before getting more into why Athens and all of this. Well, I'm a Canadian-Italian design curator and architect also by formation. I've always been very much interested into mostly collectible design, commissioning different exhibitions and projects to in different areas of the world, but mostly the Near East, where I believe also Greece is part of, I would say, between like the extended, let's say, Lebanon and beyond GCC countries and obviously the Balkans area. And I'm based in Milan, but I've been, let's say, over the past 5 years going back and forth between Athens and Milan with the project of Car One Gallery, which was the first collectible design gallery focused on contemporary creativity that was based in Athens, and that was also before in Beirut for over 8 years also, which was also the first reality that we opened there in 2011. And also I created also another reality which is called Nomad, which is a traveling showcase for art and design, where we invite galleries from all over the world to take part to our fair. We did different editions in Capri, Monaco, Venice, and St. Moritz. And as well, I'm creating also some independent exhibitions. This year I made a focus on, let's say, African creativity, doing a non-profit project also in Rwanda to push forward new emerging talents from the design, art, and architecture scene in Kigali, as well as also in Tunisia, where we work with like different craftsmen and designers and artists from all over the world that we brought to interact with.
Thank you. And Marios, you've just been appointed creative director for Zeus+Dione.
Correct.
Which was founded by 2 Greek women, quite the goddesses. And we'd love to know a little bit more about the brand and the inspiration, how it gets its inspiration from Greece.
Sure.
Anna.
So I'm half Greek, half Austrian to start with. I grew up in Athens till my 15th birthday. I moved to parts of the world for studies. And in the last 3 years, I returned back to Athens, mostly because of COVID situation. However, I gained access to work with Zeus+Dione, being the creative director of the company for the last 4 years. My biggest interest was, first of all, that the company tapped into craftsmanship and heritage in a very difficult stage, economic stage that the country has been, and had an amazing idea to go and kind of like open up different areas of Greece and help them kind of maintain a type of heritage in fabric making.
Wonderful. So we're going to start by delving into the past to find inspiration. I think Athens, with its many, many layers, is a place of wonder, wonder for architects and designers. And we'll start with the project of Athene, and I'll leave you speak about it, Marianna, which was a beautiful Grande Dame that you brought back.
So yes, Athene is basically the revival of a legendary bar that used to be very famous during the 1940s. If anyone has been to Syntagma Square, there was this, of course, Athens is much denser now. There are many more cars, many more people. But there are a few familiar sites, like this characteristic spot, that is really interesting to see how it evolved. So Zoners was founded in 1940. Its founder was a Greek chocolatier named Carlos Zonaras, who came from the States with a vision of giving Athens its best restaurant. So he kind of joined forces. He brought chefs from Europe, created a very interesting menu, and also considering the spot, it became really attractive. Also, it was really famous because it was a creative incubator for many famous patrons at the time that came to meet at Zoners to discuss, to exchange ideas and kind of form the cultural scene at the time. So famous like musicians and actors like Manos Hadzidakis, Melina Mercouri, and many more had this place as their day-to-day, let's say, meeting point. So many refurbishments, so Zoners kind of decline. And a decade ago, when the whole building was leased from the National Bank of Greece, They had the vision of kind of introducing it to the contemporary scene by bringing more upscale restaurants and shops and boutiques and kind of reviving the area. And zoners couldn't be left out of this equation. Two young entrepreneurs, the Panas brothers, took the management, and they came to the studio to help them so that we could make this vision into reality and kind of bringing zoners back to its previous lore, but with a modern touch. So in a way that we had to go back in order to move forward. So we had to understand what was the thing that made zoners so interesting, why people wanted to go there, and what was its character. Of course, given its very central location and the way that they used to house all these people, we were saying that we would like to approach it as if Athens were to be a hotel, Athene would be kind of its lobby. Of course, we were really inspired by all the tradition and the Art Deco references of the era. So entering the space, what features is this pewter-topped and walnut-covered bar with a brass armature on top, which gives a very soft glow to the space.
So creating a new center of attention for designers and artists, again.
Yes, yes. And also what we really tried to do is, because it has a big open plan space, to create different pockets of seating, kind of different with one another. So there is a big monastery table kind of in the middle that big groups can sit there and have a lunch, or a more cozy spots for dining spaces, or sit by the fireplace and read your book.
Yeah, so bringing back or merging, blurring the lines between design hotels that are very strong in Athens, and then cultural spaces, and then meeting spaces. Because Athens is really a city that I personally love for meeting. People are out sharing a cafe. It's a very open plaza all the time.
True.
And Marios, looking at inspiration and how important is the past, is the culture of Greece to the Zeus+Dione brand?
To me particularly, it's very, very important. However, it is just a starting point. I think the most important thing for me as a designer is to have like a storytelling technique that leads me to discover new elements, and in this, it's very, very important to bring innovative ways that you can take this sort of already existing element of heritage, or whatever you want to call it, and you bring it to a different dimension in a new sort of meaning, a more modern approach. So, yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to use this to dive into the burgeoning scene of Greek's burgeoning scene. And I want to look at a few designers with you, Nicolas, that you featured, that you did exhibitions with, and really understand what's behind and how different they are to other European capitals and their approach.
So let's say that the evolution of Athens over the past 25 years was quite interesting. At least I've been, let's say, going quite regularly to Athens since the early 2000s. And the way it evolves a bit in a roller coaster, of course, in terms of economy and all of this. There was a sort of golden age where the design scene, art and design scene, was not that developed in the 2000s, right after the Olympics. And then after there was a moment of pause, obviously, during the crisis. But then when I decided to move the gallery to Athens in 2019, I discovered a whole new incredible scene, I must say. So many creatives from all over the world decided to establish their studios in Athens. Obviously, there was like the fact it was very easy in terms of costs to find like studios at like a very low rents. This, of course, like brought a lot of interesting people to choose Athens as a base, but also as in terms of lifestyle, inspiration, and let's say the whole urban, let's say, situation really brought an interesting crowd, and many of the young creatives, such as Kostas Lambridis, decided after their studies abroad to come back to Athens to establish their practice. Kostas is represented by a carpenter's workshop gallery. He had a few solo exhibitions already. I hope you had the chance in Paris. Actually, last year he had a very beautiful exhibition at the gallery space. Kostas has an approach which is very interesting about, let's say, layering materials and doing a very meticulous research about, let's say, categories and materiality and how to merge them together to create a new entity within all of these different materials. I must say each piece is unique. His work is extremely sculptural, I must say. It takes also forever to build only one piece also. He has an amazing design studio also. I don't know if you had the chance to visit in the north of the city, where, let's say, he builds everything with 4 or 5 different artists from all over the world coming to help him to put everything together.
So already we're saying that Athens is veering away from only the historics and the past. You mentioned it, Marios, in your design, just hinting on the inspiration, but then and the past, and then going away from it. Same project with Athene. And we're seeing that more and more there's a redefinition of modern Greece today through the projects, whether architectural, fashion, or design. And let's continue with the Periant, which is a beloved design hotel in the center of Athens, which was a project by K Studio that brought the whole neighborhood back to life. And it's another thing I'll touch upon with Nicolas, is that when he set up Caravan Gallery in Piraeus, which was really close to the harbor, where all the ferries arrive, it gave a real dynamic to the whole neighborhood to bring creativity and redefine the whole neighborhood. So back to the Periant.
Yes, so Periant is a new hip hotel, let's say, that is located into the deep in the center, in the heart of the ancient triangle of Athens. It is located in Agia Serini Square, which is a typical Athenian piazza featuring a church and many cafes and restaurants around. And it has a big diversity in terms also of building styles and layers, from neoclassical ones to modernistic ones, and also in the mixed hues, from cafes, small shops, antiques, all the way down to the flea market of Monastiraki. So this great building held the multi-use layout for the previous decades, having bars and like bar and shop at the ground level, and featuring apartments and offices at the upper levels with no particular character. And when a decade ago the Swoubopoulos siblings acquired the property, they had a vision of kind of reviving again this historic part of Athens by bringing also hospitality again into this area and giving something back to the neighborhood, trying also to bring people to stay there and connect and reach out. So the building was really particular in its shape. It has this trapezoid plan. So configuring the layout of the rooms was quite difficult. So, and also each floor, as you go up, is different in height, because these buildings of the 30s, they had the premium floors being the lower ones because there was no elevator. So, so each room is kind of unique in terms of layout, and they have a circulation corridor in the middle which kind of offsets the facade and kind of mimics the urban fabric and the way the circulation is made. The architecture of the building is the streamline modern, which is an Art Deco movement that began in the 1930s, that had its roots from the Industrial Revolution and the straight big lines and curves, which we tried to infiltrate also to the interiors, in the circulation areas, and also to the smaller scale and the items that you find around in the common areas. And of course, the interiors are inspired from the Athenian modernism of the 40s, having the terrazzo floors, which we tried to do. It was really difficult to find craftsmen that could do it the old way, picking the aggregates, the scale of it, and kind of doing many tests to see how we can achieve this result. And also blending with materials like the wood, the marble surfaces, the textured glass, and the brass details that you found in this era.
And the sisters that own the property, one of them, Anastasia,
yes,
is really fond of contemporary art, and she brought a lot of contemporary art inside the walls. So transforming the hotel and so into a gallery space. And I used a quote from her, which was wonderful. Being what you might call an art traveler, I feel that Greek artists were way underrepresented and underappreciated on the international scene. So she brought them into the walls of the hotel.
A focus on young Greek artists, which is great. Yeah.
And, it was for her, it was also to engage with the local art scene. And it's also a reason why the Periante is so successful is that it engages with its own neighborhood. It brings a new vibe to the whole neighborhood.
Yes, and that's why they feature contemporary Greek artists, and they also have informed all the time in the reception about venues that are happening, because it's the site that it's located, it's really extrovert and vibrant. So they kind of invite you to visit Athens, and it's like a hotel without a particular lobby, let's say. Athens is its lobby, in a way.
And she said that I believe that good, meaningful art creates an energy within the space that is priceless. And it's again about this idea of energy. I think there's a buoyancy in Athens that is wonderful and that is almost contagious. And I think Pauline Amiliou, we were just mentioning backstage, being one of your friends, but one of the designers you invited to exhibit at Carwen Gallery, has this incredible energy. You want to be in contact with her design pieces.
Well, the work of Paulina is also very interesting because as you can, let's say, intuitively guess by observing the objects, she's basically going all around the flea markets in the Cyclades, on the islands, but also in Athens, and she's collecting various pieces. We did for the show we did 2 years ago. She collected mostly chairs, so we had around, I think, 40 or 50 seatings actually that we exhibited. But I think what is great is the way she transforms what she finds. It's mostly, the sort of let's say, furniture from the 50s, 60s, 70s that, like, no one is really much more interested into collecting somehow that she finds. And then she starts to cut and change the shape, basically. But still you can feel what was the original, let's say, feel of these objects. And then she starts to work with foam, plasters, and she layers everything with resins, and she uses also very beautiful upholsteries, and then she creates this sort of very pop, almost manga-esque objects actually to let's say interact with the space, who are quite striking, I must say. And she's also another case of a young Greek designer who went abroad to study in Los Angeles and decided to come back to set base in Athens with the boom in the early 20s of the pandemics, let's say. Yeah.
So giving a new energy and a new visual identity to what Athens is. And back to you, Marios, with Zeus+Dione is real, that redefines modern Greece and constantly looks back to look forward through the shapes, through the materials, through the use of color. And I'd like to go through, for example, the example of the spatpoto, if I say it well, and how it became quite a visual imprint of, or a visual signature of the brand.
It's probably like the trademark of the company now, and it's something that the company is very proud of. It's made in Souffly. It's a case of trying to be social active by giving back to old manufacturing units in Greece and helping them create something new with the existing knowledge.
So what was, how important is this motif? It's textured silk.
The motif is basically like, it's called spathato because of the way the graphic jacquard is being built onto this silk base. Here you can see one of the founders of the company together with Mr. Kostas Muhtaridis in Soufli. Basically he closed his mill many years back. His father owned it, and they went there and supported him financially to rebuild what was an existing knowledge that was completely deflated by the economic situation that affected a lot of people around Greece and manufacturing units.
So using fashion to recreate...
For sure. Like, I mean, like spathato is like a very classic sort of motif that you will find for interior design curtains, little tapestries that you would have on a table. And the idea was to kind of bring it back to fashion. Of course, it existed also in silk fabrics that would go in folkloric costumes, but the idea was like to emphasize on the beauty of the material, the consistency of the silk, the good quality of the material, and to actually represent it in a way, as I said before, that is like more updated, more modern.
And another modern example is the embroidery and how much embroidery you're doing in the collections. You know, that almost...
This embroidery here that you see is like a very traditional. I don't tend to use this kind of motifs. However, I try to use the technique that is very well known to this artist called Aris Jonevrakis. He's in near Nafplio in Peloponnese, and he creates amazing motifs with his machine. I mean, it's amazing. You can send him like something really graphic or something very heritage-based, and he transforms it.
Yeah. And you talked about the importance of being social and of being, I think it's something that we might touch upon also through design or architecture, to be open to everyone. It's a place of democracy. So we feel, I think, in the creative fields, how important it is to bring things back to life and open them to everyone, not just make it them for a luxury sector. And so we continue to paying tribute to ancient materials and materiality, because I think you can't go to Greece or Athens and not see marble and not be touched by the timelessness of certain materials. So one show that I really loved back in the days at Kawan was Theodore Psychoios, and who unearths old slabs of marble and brings them back to life 50, 60 years later?
Yes. Let's say that Theo is a very interesting artist that I met also in the first months I opened a gallery in Athens. I went to visit his studio. He was mostly working as a painter when I met him, actually. He was obsessed with a specific type of blue color, the one that you see on the stool on the right here. And let's say... But he was always interested into design somehow. When he came to the gallery, to the first show, he was like, oh, I would love to do design, you know, and let me think about a project that could be somehow sculptural pieces or unique, but that I could bring to a next level somehow. So he started with a small presentation he did during the Athens Design Forum. Actually, it was quite interesting, where I saw one of his pieces, and I told him, well, Theo, I think you're a born designer as well, not only an artist. And I wanted to learn more about his process. So I went to his studio, and I discovered like that he was basically doing a research all around, let's say, the quarries or the different stone workshops, and he was using the leftovers basically, and the rests, let's say, of pieces of marbles he was finding around. He was assembling them with like such a sensibility, I must say, in terms of balance almost Japanese, I was in terms of like delicacy and the way he was picking the certain stones with the veins, and he was managing to create these like minimal tree legs, let's say, minimal balance somehow of very heavy object also, because like a bench like this is about like 800 kilos, you know. And I must say, his work was very striking, and he discovered through design another aspect of his own creativity. And like he created also afterwards also amazing large-scale exhibitions. He also showcased also in Paris at La Fanour, also at the Laspad. And I think I'm very happy that he managed to find also a new wave of inspiration in his career.
Very wabi-sabi in a way of... And also helping us delve into the past and not just erase the traces of the past. And I think there's a project called On Earth by K Studio that is very interesting also in delving into the past and not erasing those signs of the past.
Yes, I mean, I seeing now also Theodore's sculptural pieces and how they connect with the raw earth. We had the same approach or vision when we were to make a proposal about a very interesting project that we were honored to participate, a competition about the extension of the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, one of the monumental museums in Greece. Which it was really interesting. When we started, we were along with Kengoku Architects on this competition, and the purpose of the competition was the extension of the exhibition space of the museum that was about to happen in front of the neoclassical old building and under the garden that stretches until the Patission Street, the main avenue. When we started the competition, we took a tour in the museum, and we came across numerous of marble busts and sculptures hidden in the basement of the museum, waiting to be displayed on shelves because there was no space. So it was really unfamiliar, like to see all these valuable artifacts displayed like that. And also starting to discover the history of the museum and its heritage, we came across the story of the burial of the marble sculptures that happened during the 1940s, during the Nazi invasion. So it was a time where, during the World War II, the director of the museum took the bold decision of covering and kind of burying many sculptures into concrete vaults under the basement in order to protect them from theft or bombardism. So this was really something that intrigued us in how we could approach the new extension. So in a simple kind of act of lifting the earth and kind of unearth unburying and revealing these hidden artifacts to the world was kind of just this simple gesture of approaching the concept. And the design approach is quite simple. It features this floating slab that kind of invites the passengers to go in, kind of in a slit-like opening, which, considering the vibrant road in front, this is located in Exarchia area, which is one of the most vibrant and diverse areas of the center of Athens. It has the School of Architecture is right on one side. So culture and many things are happening, and it is up for development. And the underside of the roof, it's kind of the main feature that is to resemble like raw earth that kind of embodies both visitors and artifacts as one.
And I think this about tweaking, looming or weaving the threads from the past into modernity, which I'm using as a transition to bring the loom back into focus through the designs of Zeus+Dione, Marius. How important it is to use specific savoir-faire to also create new designs that are bold, that are a real link between the past and today.
Well, again, it's trying to bring social active elements. This is a work collaboration between me and Alexandra Bisa, a fantastic weaver in Athens. She does a lot of work for many different people. She did an amazing wall on one of the stores of ancient Greek sandals, the key store in downtown Athens as well. She does amazing things with color, and of course the projects are ongoing. Like every time I have some kind of crazy idea to bring it further. Like for example, we just did recently a weave with chains inside, or with different raffia elements that basically like different viewpoints of materialities together. So that's really wonderful to see again that the raw material can push the boundaries in so many ways.
And also inventing a modern way of living with a new Hellenistic lifestyle. And I think I personally fell in love with the first interiors collection of Zeus+Dione, which was another interpretation of the same motifs, of the same patterns, on different surfaces, and suddenly it was a natural connection with how you live and how you share food, which is also a very important element in the Greek way of life.
Want me to tell you something about
it? Of course.
Well, the idea here was there is so much ceramic around us, and of course, like in order to create an emphasis on the first collection that was our homeware collection. It was called Philoxenia. It was like to maybe bring an imprint of what is best known, the spathoto element. However, give a raw element to the surface of the ceramic. So this was the imprint, and another person that we work quite closely. It's a number of people actually. We work with also like innovative ideas like 3D design with Bogdanis. It's an artist in Athens as well that we create amazing sort of ceramic or porcelain pieces. And these are the pieces that are like slightly more raw in texture, let's say.
So we've already seen some wonderful designs, but objects of common interest are also a very singular approach to design. And to bold designs for a daily lifestyle.
Yeah, objects of common interest, Leonidas and Eleni, I must say, are somehow probably the number one design studio promoting Greek creativity abroad. They are based in New York City as well. So I must say they have been constantly working on new projects. I think they come up with an exhibition probably in a museum or in a gallery every 3 months somewhere in the world. So they promote always quite actively the idea of, let's say, their Greek identity somehow, but they push it really to, let's say, experimentation of materials, and mostly by also the color research, transparencies, and laboratory that they created, especially because they bought also in New York City a patent and the whole factory of resin making, actually, from one of the guys who was making the small statues of liberty, basically souvenirs. And they bought all the recipes, and he came to Athens, and in Piraeus, basically, they settled the atelier where they experimented, and they have different patterns as well to create like incredible transparencies and iridescences that they managed to do in resin work, actually. So it's the first, they brought also a sort of innovative let's say, workshop that was not existing at all in Greece before, to be a bit more, let's say, part of a global design movement, and to establish, I would say one more time, Athens as like a very important point for design now in Europe, definitely.
Yeah, and for reaching out to New York, outside, way outside. And we were talking before the conference how Athens is the only European capital with its own Riviera, and it brings us to another project by K Studio of reviving the Athenian Riviera.
Yes, because many people that visit Athens, maybe for a tiny bit before head to another destination or the islands, don't have the chance maybe to reach out and go out a bit outside of the city. We have a project that has been recently completed. It's the old Asteria Glyfadas, which is a natural, very beautiful bay, almost 20 minutes by the city center, which was conceived in the 1950s as a tourist destination in a greater scheme of rebranding Greece from the National Tourism Organization and the Bank of Greece. So they brought together 3 young modernist architects of the time to design the facilities, the beach facilities for the resort. The characteristic would be that all these facilities were light structures made out of wood, following the modernistic character of the time. And they were to facilitate the support activities of the beach. It was also a destination really popular during the 60s because it was featuring in all the Greek prominent movies. We all remember from our childhood Finos Films making all the movies in the Riviera. The resort, after many years, it's lost its kind of whole. Some of the structures were left in disuse, some were abandoned. And it was a few years ago that Nafsika, along with Grivalia, decided to revive the place and create a holistic, again, to make it a whole, and also by transforming it into from a beach resort to a 5-star hotel under the umbrella of One and Only. So we teamed up with 2 other practices from Athens, A6A and Auto, to do the master plan and kind of transform the structures, the existing structures, into new shells that we had to respect many things like the footprints of the buildings had to remain the same. And at the same time, we had to incorporate a bigger program that would be needed for the needs of the contemporary needs of today.
But we can see how you made a natural transition between the lines back then and the contemporary lines today.
Yes, I mean, one of the main features is that all the structure is out of glulam timber, which is also like has a node to the previous shells, but it's also the more sustainable option to go with. And then we tried to use local materials. The dry stone walls are made from local stone, and they're made the same way that they used to be back at the time. Local marble, of course, and yes, the way that kind of in the interiors there is also another layer along with Musalab that we did. So there are a few items that are a bit more elemental and structured, and it's definitely one of the gems of the
newest
Athenian
gems.
Riviera.
But a real transition from the past to today, a natural timelessness and a form of grandeur that Athens never lost. And I'd like to finish this conference, since we're coming short of time, with Alekos Fascianos, whom you're familiar with, or whose design estate you're familiar with, to show how Greece never stops looking back at its beautiful creative talents to innovate for tomorrow.
Yeah, Alekos Fascianos is probably one of the most famous Greek painters, definitely from the last century and early of this century too. And I think every almost whole household in Greece has a painting or a piece of Fascianos at home, which is quite interesting. And a few years ago, while I was going for open door at the actual home of Fascianos, the daughter, Victoria, who's managing the estate, opened the house of where her dad used to live, and I discovered such an incredible collection of design works that were never exhibited, actually, because Alekos was fascinated by craftsmen. He was commissioning all of the furniture for all of his houses, also in Kea and in 2 different locations in Athens. He designed entirely, even the door handles and every single details of the bed heads and the tables. It's incredible the work he did. And I was telling Victoria, we have to do something about this work because, you know, Greece somehow in terms of design lacks of, let's say, 20th century design somehow, and there was not a design industry. There was producing furniture like in Italy or in France, let's say. So I thought that this could be an interesting angle to show creativity from an artist of what he did. So we decided to create editions out of and to source also the artisans, like the bronze makers, the ceramic makers, and the rattan one, all between Thessaloniki and Athens, who could reproduce with or the original, let's say, approval of the estate, let's say, a small series of the beautiful objects that Alekos did. So I thought it was a very interesting way to bring back this heritage to the public somehow, and it was one of the
and create a natural continuum between the 20th and the 21st century and great designs that were always taking place in Greece. Thank you very much to all 3 of you for this talk.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.